Hello dear viewers, and welcome to a special episode of A Walk to Work with Whittaker. Today I am going to be talking over that street sweeping machine to tell you some of my theories about the season finale. Now, obviously spoilers ahead, so I'm going to give you 3 seconds to switch me off, because I am going to be dropping the finale title in this video, in fact both parts, so... The two-part finale is Ascension of the Cybermen and the Timeless Children. Now, Ascension of the Cybermen, I'll say a brief thing about that. Look, we don't know much about it. I'm guessing the lone Cyberman from last week is going to be reasserting the force of the Cybermen. And you know what? That is something pretty new and interesting. We've explored this kind of idea before of Cybermen being restored in Nightmare in Silver, but if you've seen my Cyber Rankings video, you will know I don't rank that one too highly, so I'm very happy to have another take on that idea. Now, the main thing I want to talk about is the Timeless Children, because that's a very interesting episode title. Of course, if we go back to the season opener, Spyfall Part 2, the Master mentions that Gallifrey is built on the lie of the Timeless Child, singular. However, now we're talking about the Timeless Children, more than one child. And I wasn't necessarily expecting the finale to be called The Timeless Child, but when it was called The Timeless Children, I got rather intrigued. And so I have 3 ideas for who the Timeless Children might be. So idea number 1 relates to Gallifrey. Because I got to thinking, what could the Master have discovered that would enrage him so much that he would destroy Gallifrey? You know, usually he just keeps away from the place, really. And I got to thinking about the Doctor's nightmare in Can You Hear Me? And the Doctor saw a child, who we presume to be the Timeless Child, standing in front of some large building, structure, edifice, statue, and was then yanked out of her dream. I am wondering if the Timeless Children are the real inhabitants of Gallifrey, and if they are creating the Time Lords. Because when you think about Time Lords, they're a really weird evolutionary thought. This race that can naturally bodily regenerate. Okay, let's try all 3 words together. This race that can naturally, bodily regenerate to such a degree that it completely changes the personality. Now, of course, Doctor Who books and audios have speculated that this was an introduced characteristic put into the species by Rassilon Omega, possibly the Other. Won't go too much into the Other here, but the Other is kind of a proto-version of the Doctor. We'll come back to that. They're a fairy tale. Stephen Moffat described them as a fairy tale. So what if they were created? What if these timeless children created this species of Time Lords? And funnily enough, I think that could explain Dr. Ruth. Because during Stephen Moffat's tenure, we had at least 2 instances where the Doctor was expected to die. Well, 3 actually, but in one of those he was a robot, so I'm just talking about 2. So the end of Matt Smith, of course, the end of his life cycle, he was meant to die. The end of Peter Capaldi, he didn't want to regenerate, and he was preparing himself for death. What if on one of those occasions the Timeless Children created another Doctor, who would have no memory of having been Jodie Whittaker, because she never was Jodie Whittaker, and Jodie Whittaker would have no memory of being her, Dr. Ruth, because she never was Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth is a completely different Doctor. Chris Chibnall has said that she's not an alternative universe Doctor. I can't remember if he said she's not a clone, but technically she wouldn't be a clone. She is her own person. So that's theory number 1. Theory number 2 is that the Timeless Children, are remnants of old Gallifreyans. This is slightly related, but they're not kind of fakes, but the Time Lords just keep self-building and self-perpetuating, and that's bringing in the idea of the Other from the Doctor Who New Adventures novels. And the Other was a figure in Time Lord history, threw himself into a gene bank, and was reincarnated partially as the Doctor many generations later. Now I'm just going to come over here for something, because Bernard, if you're watching out there, this is the poster you were talking about. We had some pretty severe storms over the weekend, so this is what it looks like now. Let's pull that up. Yeah, so... And unfortunately, it's already been on, so even if you were in Sydney, you wouldn't be able to go to it. But there you go. Now, what do these two theories have working against them? Basically, they are deeply mired in Doctor Who continuity and Time Lords in funny hats. We haven't seen Time Lords beyond the Doctor and Missy, etc., and the Master since 2015. And Hellbent isn't exactly a well-regarded episode. Look, I enjoyed it. But to go that deep into Gallifreyan continuity is not something I think Chris Chibnall would do. So my third theory about who the Timeless Children are: Ryan, Graham, and Yaz. Because of course, even Graham, who is in his 60s, is a child to the Doctor. And what got me thinking about this was a moment in Can You Hear Me, specifically Graham's nightmare. And Graham's nightmare includes Grace saying to him, "Why didn't you save me?" And it's kind of weird that Graham and Ryan are in a time machine and they have never brought up the idea of going back in time to save Grace. It's like they accept that that would be cheating. But what if all of a sudden they realise they could? What if something in Ascension of the Cybermen tells them that they can change time without consequence, or with an acceptable consequence? Because this season has reiterated to us several times that history can be changed. Orphan 55, Spyfall, when the Doctor wipes Ada Lovelace's mind so that we don't get technological advances too early. Speculating what could happen if Nikola Tesla dies, speculating what could happen if Byron dies, or if the lone Cyberman destroys Earth in 1816. The Companions have been told, all series, that time can be changed. They will change with it. But what if they don't? What if the power of the lone Cyberman means they can be tempted? Grace can be brought back. Ryan's mum can be brought back. Now, I'm not sure what the temptation would be for Yaz, but maybe Prem could be saved from Demons of the Punjab. This is a pretty wild theory, but it introduces drama between the central characters. It introduces this idea of temptation. And what if, in all that, they could forget about the Doctor? They could go back to living their lives, because in a way, all three of them are running away from the tragedies that they've had on Earth. Even Yaz to a certain extent, although she's sort of faced what happened to her 3 years ago in Can You Hear Me, and I thought that was an absolutely beautiful scene where she goes to see the police officer who helped her. But yeah, those are my three theories. The Timeless Children have somehow created Gallifreyans, or they're reincarnated Gallifreyans running for the crossing again, or the Timeless Children are our three companions. Big truck. 2 big trucks. So, personally, I think the third theory is more likely of any of them. I don't necessarily think it's definitely going to happen. But of any of them, I think it's more likely because it involves all of our characters and it provides an understandable thing for the audience. You know, if you could save someone you lost, if you could change your life for the better, you might do that. Now, why would that outrage the Master? Well, it may not outrage him, but he could have been lying. could have been lying to set the Doctor off, because the Doctor has become a bit colder and a bit harsher with her friends that she wasn't before. The Master could be driving a wedge. And he's not necessarily lying that the Timeless Child are why he destroyed Gallifrey. Timeless Children are why he destroyed Gallifrey, I should say. Blimey, it's loud at this intersection, I do apologise. Because they caused him to destroy Gallifrey because he knew that would then lead the Doctor and her friends to create the Timeless Children. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments. I don't expect any of these theories to be true, but I've had so much fun speculating this series about what is coming up in a way I just couldn't last series. Of course, I did do a prediction for the Battle of Ranskorav Kolos, which seemed in the end to be pretty wrong. Well, actually completely wrong. But even then, that wasn't so much fun to come up with. It was just, oh, I came up with this. But yeah, I would love to hear what you think down in the comments. What do you think is going to happen? And how do you think that new actor Barak Stemmus is going to get on? I think he's going to be great. Honk. But that's the end of this video. I'm not sure what happened there. But as usual, please do like, share and subscribe. I will be back hopefully over the weekend with Picard episode 5, and definitely on Monday with my review of Ascension of the Cybermen. Until then, thank you so much for watching.